Welcome to Pig Pods. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go. Here are your hosts, Angelos and Mo.
Welcome to Pig Pods, your success podcast. I'm Mo, here with Angelos.
Hello, Mo.
Hello, Angelos.
So I'm really excited today about today's podcast, as it's a topic of a discussion that I feel really, really passionate about. So those of you who know me or have been along to the pig networking events, the thousands of people that have been along to the events will know that I'm extremely passionate about.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit scared about how this is going to turn out today, as we're actually going to do a little role play.
Ooh.
No, not like that. So I think maybe we need a safe word.
Pig pods.
Okay, Pig Pods is the safe word, in case Angelos gets a bit excited. Angelos is going to be taking the side of the landlord in this discussion, and I'll be opposing him.
So yeah, this is our first pig pod debate, discussing whether landlords are a scourge or a benefit to society.
Well,
So I'm really looking forward to this.
I would propose, Angelos, that all these greedy landlords are increasing house prices and making normal houses totally unaffordable for the ordinary person.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with you, Mo. I don't agree at all. I think that landlords are providing housing for people that can't necessarily afford houses. So if they can't get on the ladder, where else can they live? People want to have the freedom. You know, if I want a nice swanky flat in Mayfair, I can't afford those prices due to various reasons, London economics being one of them. But I still want that nice lifestyle, so I have to rent, and I have no issues renting if it means I have a nice lifestyle in a really nice looking flat. Plus, many rental houses aren't necessarily your typical family houses, so if you have a really large house, let's say 6 to maybe even 10 bedroom, they're not necessarily geared up for your average family size of 3-4 people. So they lend themselves to being either converted into possibly flats or into a house of multiple occupation, providing workers on a short or a long-term basis a place to live. So why shouldn't you be able to do that? And also, I personally, and I know a lot of investors out there, they like run-down, smelly old houses. They bring them back into use where your average person on the street doesn't necessarily have the skill set or time to refurb a house. So they can't get a mortgage on an unmortgageable house if it has no kitchen or if it has no bathroom. So we do this and bring these houses back to life, ready for people to live in again. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be paid for that service with the additional sale price. And like I said, renting allows people to live in houses that they can't normally afford to live in. And whether that's a short-term basis, whether I want a 3-month or a 6-month tenancy, why shouldn't I be able to have that? I don't necessarily want the burden of having a mortgage, and some people are very happy living a mobile lifestyle.
But aren't landlords always consistently benefiting from increasing rents, which just keep going up and up and up, while pay is actually remaining stagnant, or you get a really tiny minimal rise that's nowhere near inflation or the rate of the rental increase?
This is true. Rents do increase, and unfortunately they don't always tie in line with what people are being paid, and salaries haven't necessarily gone up as quickly as, say, house prices. So there is a disproportionate thing between the two of them there. But let's not forget the cost of living also has gone up as well. The cost of providing housing has also gone up. For example, we have increased utility bills. We've had increased insurance costs with the government bringing out an extra tax on all insurances. Tax changes are also penalising landlords. The government is again tinkering with the hope to help the tenant, which ultimately will cause more damage for both the landlord and the tenant. Even landlords that provide a good service, they're still being penalised. For example, the stamp duty increases that we've had recently. For anyone who owns a second home, again, we're going to be taxed really, really heavily. So although rents are going up, the cost of maintaining a house and keeping those standards up high are also going up.
But the landlords aren't always providing a good service, are they? You get mould issues, you've got damp issues, repairs don't happen quickly enough. So you say they're providing a good service, but they're not always.
This is true. But then again, we have the same in any industry, in any service provider. There will always be good and there'll always be bad. I don't necessarily like the term rogue landlord. You're either a good landlord or you're not. And I feel that looking at the mould and damp issues, for example, tenants also have their part to play. The amount of times that myself or other fellow investors have gone out in their early days and looking at damp, in inverted quotes, issues, and the reality is that they've been drying all their clothes inside a room on top of a radiator. They never open up a window, and it causes lots of mould and causes lots of problems, which the landlord then has to go in and sort out. And so it's effectively the landlord's fault. But the reality is that tenants have to play their part in maintaining the house as well. But looking at the bigger picture, a lot of landlords are providing high quality accommodation. Some of the properties that I have, with level reclining sofas, etc., bars in the houses, they have a higher quality house than what I have in my own home. And I think a lot of people do take pride in providing good quality accommodation. I know you provide service accommodation, don't you? And the quality there is extremely high, and it has to be, because tenants have now their pick and choice. They can choose to live in high quality accommodation. For example, the student market many years ago, you had this impression that they just lived in these old digs and they were just horrible, damp, smelly places. Now students expect and they demand high quality accommodation, and I feel that working with landlords, eventually the general standard will be raised quite highly.
But landlords are greedy and they always want more rent and more rent and more rent. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I don't feel that landlords are very greedy, and they always want more rent, because ultimately we are governed by what the market allows us to charge. We can't go and charge £1,000 when the market would only allow £600 or £700. That just doesn't work. But also providing a better service costs more, so the market forces push up rents as well. Limited supply and massive demand, that doesn't help things either. I mean, we don't necessarily have lots of new houses, affordable houses for people, so they're being forced to rent. As the population increases, as we have immigration, etc., there isn't enough houses out there for people, and so this causes an additional effect of increasing rental prices. But let's not also forget that the margins that landlords actually make on the rent that they collect, it isn't as great as what it used to be, with so many increased taxes, increased costs, etc. Let's not forget, most landlords use letting agents, and then you also have the cleaning, the maintenance costs on top. So at the end of the day, we aren't necessarily left with a lot of money. I know the impression of the greedy landlord who has an infinite supply of money, that's very far from the truth. And let's not forget landlords and the supporting industries. So for example, estate agent, builders, etc., all these other industries that are around property, they put back billions and billions of pounds back into the economy. I think it's around £12 billion last year that the property industry reinvested into the economies.
Well, all I can say is I'm glad that the extra stamp duty and mortgage interest relief has been removed from greedy landlords, and they've got to pay more stamp duty.
But unfortunately, though, it's a double-edged sword. So although you as a tenant may be happy about this, the tax changes will force rents up, unfortunately, because ultimately we are not a charity. We have to make a little bit of a living by providing a good service. So in any business, when there's additional costs, who ends up paying the additional costs? It's the end customer. And unfortunately, the end customer in our case are the tenants. Landlords don't necessarily want to put up rents, they're more than happy where they are. But if we keep getting additional taxes, if we keep getting these additional costs which keep going up and up and up, we have no choice.
But weren't buy-to-let landlords responsible for the crash with all those dodgy loans?
I think let's not forget that it was the irresponsible banking that led to the market crash back in the day, by repackaging high-risk loans and selling them on. And let's not forget the government bailed out the irresponsible bankers for doing that. And I like to think that we have a slightly more stable banking system now. But it seems to me that landlords are the new bankers. And I said that with a B, not another letter. And unfortunately, we have a very large vocal section of society, essentially called Generation Rent, who are swaying government policies against landlords, and it's not an even keel. So for example, there isn't an equivalent vocal body for landlords supporting landlords and their issues that they have. The Generation Rent are influencing government, and the government are reacting to this, because no one's going to cry for the greedy landlord, shall we say. But I feel that the government are being quite short-sighted with their populist policies, because essentially by taxing landlords more or removing certain benefits that help landlords maintain a small profit, shall we say, that could really affect the end customer, which ultimately is the tenant. That's not a threat or anything, but that is the reality. If we can't make a profit, then what's the point in having the property? But then Angelos, playing devil's advocate to myself there, isn't that the whole point? The government want people to release stock back into society, and that is a good point as well. But my answer to that is not necessarily that landlords should be responsible for doing that, or even if that stock was there, is that automatically going to allow a tenant to suddenly be mortgageable, suddenly going to be able to fund a 30, 50, whatever £1,000 deposit that they need to have? So it's not just landlords, it's not just the government, it's also the banking system. The banking system needs to allow tenants to easily jump off from renting and buying a property. You need a multi-pronged approach there from different sectors. It's not just let's punish one sector, which it appears to be at the moment with what the government's putting in. And my personal view is that the government needs a sustainable 30-year house building programme and enshrine it in law, so regardless of which government we get, it will always continue. And also, let's not forget, we are a small island and we've got an ever-increasing population. We have a massive green belt there, so there's no reason why we can't continue building. We need to incentivise builders to keep doing it. That, for me, is the long-term solution. Rather than just punishing the people that are providing the service, let's put in a sustainable 30-year plan to actually give everyone a home. And why not? We've got plenty of land to do it. So that's my view on these.
Okay, pig pods. All right, I think we need to leave it there. But that was good, really good debate there. I think ultimately, Angelos, we're going to have to agree to disagree. But we would love to hear you, the listeners' views on the Pig Pod community Facebook group about this subject.
Brilliant. So that was our first pig debate, and we're still friends. I'm not quite sure what that knife's doing onto my throat, but we'll have to move on from there. So thank you for listening to today's Pig Pods, your success podcast. Click subscribe, leave us a review, and we look forward to hearing your comments in the Pig Pod Facebook community. I've been Angelos.
And I've been Mo.
And see you again on the next exciting Pig Pod.
You've been listening to Pig Pods. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.pig.network.